The Last of Pods era starts now. Welcome to our new podcast. We're talking about all things The Last of Us. This is the comicbook.com and Entertainment Tonight crossover podcast, The Last of Pods. I am Brandon Davis.
And I'm Ash Crossan. Welcome to The Last of Pods. This is your QZ for all things The Last of Us.
Yes, each week we're going to be diving into the latest and greatest episodes of HBO's The Last of Us with expert commentary, because that's exactly what we are. We are experts here. Episode insights, exclusive interviews. We have one for you today. The first episode of The Last of Us is out now. So we're going to dive into episode 1. And that means spoilers for episode 1 on this show.
Yeah, spoilers. And we wanted to kick it off big, like we mentioned, and I think we are, because joining us later in the show, our first interview, Gabriel Luna, Tommy Miller himself. So stick around and start hitting that thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. If not, subscribe to The Last of Pods on your favorite podcast platform. It's going to be an epic ride for the next 2.5 months.
Let's go. It's finally here. Every week, I promise you, we are going to be reacting to Last of Us episodes, breaking down how it went in the game, like how each episode compares to the equivalent moments in the game on PlayStation by Naughty Dog. We have a few clips in today's show, and we'll be doing a lot of that going forward to kind of play for you the audio, the video of how closely some of these things compare, how different some of these things are. And at the end of each show, we will dive into spoilers from the game that kind of tell you what could be coming in the next episode of The Last of Us. So we're going to save that for the end. We'll give you a very clear warning every week so that if you want to stay immune to the virus of spoilers, you won't know anything about the games The Last of Us. You will strictly know what's going on in the show, and we won't spoil the games and what might be coming for you until the end. And you can pop out of here and join us again the next week without any games knowledge.
Yes. But first, we want you to know a little more about us. If you're like, who are these people? Why are they talking about The Last of Us? Why do they have a podcast? I hear you. Maybe you don't know us. Hi, I'm Ash Crossan, and I played The Last of Us, I believe, when it came out. It might have been like a year later, but I think it was when it came out. It broke my heart, shattered it. I think this is one of those games that sticks with you in a way that no other game can. Like, there's this grief and blues that you feel after this game. It's just so beautifully heartbreaking. And then I played it again, and then I watched the cutscenes whenever I'm depressed and want to cry a little bit. And then, of course, The Last of Us 2, which is a whole nother beast to talk about, also heartbreaking. But I loved it so much. And then, this show is just, it's been a long time coming. They've been talking about it for, a decade or so of adapting it. And now we're here, and we have our daddy, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey.
I was wondering how far we'd make it before the daddy came out.
We got a daddy like pretty out of the gate. That's fine.
We love to see it. We love
more
to see
come.
It. Yeah, more to come. Oh, this is the first episode. I know it's Last of Us era. It's daddy era too. I know. I'm also a huge fan of The Last of Us. I remember when I played the game. It was the day that it came out. I bought a PlayStation 4. I was a broke college student when The Last of Us 1 came out. So I bought a PS4. Then I went to Redbox and I rented The Last of Us because Redbox was renting video games at the time. I don't know if they still do, but I rented it. I played through it in like 2 days, 3 days, because it was $2.99 a day. And also the game was that good, and I wanted to play it again afterwards. So I went back and immediately replayed it before taking the game back to Redbox and then selling my PlayStation 4, or just fully returning it and getting my money back because, as I said, broke as hell as a college student. I've been on comicbook.com for a long time. We did a Walking Dead show, which I feel like this is just the perfect segue. Zombies. But I did After the Dead for a while. So if you're joining us from that, welcome back. Nice to see you after all these years. I also do Phase Zero on comicbook.com. It's our Marvel show. Shout out to the awesome Phase Zero community. I know some of you are following this podcast because you heard of it on Phase Zero, where we got to announce it with Ash, who hosted Marvel's Hall H panel.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, wait, are we plugging stuff? Hi.
Of course. Listen, that's who we are, right? We're pluggers. It's part of the job. So yeah, so that's what I do at Comic Book. Ash, anything you want to share about what you're doing over there at ET?
Oh, some very exciting stuff. I'm doing a podcast called The Last of Pods with my friend Brandon Davis over at comicbook.com. No, it was very exciting things. I have been on and off at Entertainment Tonight for the last decade, and I've done some really cool stuff. Brandon mentioned I hosted Hall H. I literally hate singing my own praises, but I'm just trying to keep up with Brandon. So let's dive in. Let's ignore all of that and dive in.
Let's do it. Episode 1. Who talks first? You talk first. I talk first. You want to?
You talk first. I talk first. You want to talk first? What's that from? Wait, I'm blanking. What is that from?
Come on, that's like other daddy in your favorite universe. That's Oscar Isaac.
Oh yes,
The Force Awakens, right there.
Force Awakens. Oh my God. Okay,
yes, it is.
I'll talk first.
Brave.
Let's not. Yes, very brave. So episode 1 is out. It is a little over an hour and a half long. It is. What did you think?
Very interestingly, I played through the game again to get ready for this show and pull some of the clips that you're going to see on the show today and stuff like that. And I did it on easy mode just because I wanted to really refresh myself and capture this footage. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes to get to the same point in the show, which is about an hour and 20 minutes. So it's really interesting to see that they are moving the show at about the pace of the game through this first episode. For the show, okay, when I watched the show for the first time, I was kind of like, I liked it. I definitely liked it. But I was like, this is so strange. I just feel like, because I had this, this big picture in my head of The Last of Us. I've been sitting with this game for so many years, and I felt like I just knew every beat because it was so faithful. So in the video game world, I felt like, man, am I just being a tough critic? It's like impossible to please gamers because when you change it too much, we're mad. When you follow it too closely, I'm not feeling the emotional punch. Play the game again. Then I watched the episode again. And I really do like it quite a bit. I think Pedro as Joel and Bella as Ellie, like both of them grew on me. I saw the first 4 episodes so far. And by the end of episode 4, especially, I really loved both of them in these parts. It took me a minute to get used to it, though. I'm not going to lie to anybody. It took me a minute because Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson as Joel and Ellie they're just the versions of the characters that I know. And I've known them for a decade now. And then I had to get used to Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey playing these characters, and they do. Like, they really do. And they redefine the characters in a way that really honors the source material. And I dig it now. I did have to rewatch it to really fully buy in. Like, I was in, but I really I'm placing my bets on this one. I think I'm going to love it, where they're going. And it just took me a second because I was like, this is so strange. It just feels like they're acting out something I already saw. But then I watched it. I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff that's a lot deeper here. They're adding some new material. They're honoring what was there. They're adding to it. They're adding a lot of Sarah. They're adding some story to the apocalypse. And now I'm rambling. So yes, overall, love it. Took me a second to get there because I had to realize what they're doing and accept it. And now I'm here. I'm digging it.
I gotta say, I loved it out of the gate because I just feel like enough time has passed for me where I'm like, okay, I'm ready for like a different version of this or a refresh of this. But I think the moment for me when Pedro and Bella really became Joel and Ellie was the moment where they're in like the apartment or whatever. And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, oh, we're killing time. Your watch is broken, whatever. There's just this moment there where I just felt this shift inside me where I was like, oh, I'm watching Joel and Ellie. Like, they have just the right energy, the right attitude. There's even the part where like Pedro as Joel, wakes up after his little nap or whatever. And I was just like, that to me is just 100% Joel. Like, there's no difference. But I felt like when I was going into this show, my biggest fear for any adaptation is what kinds of like filler are they going to put in there? And because we didn't know initially how much this season was going to cover. And now we kind of have an idea that it's going to be pretty, we have an idea, but it's like, I was just like, oh God, there's going to be all kinds of filler and stuff. But to me, that made it more impactful. Like, I liked that we had hints and little Easter eggs, I guess, if you want to call them that, going into before the outbreak coming. You can hear it on the radio. There's when Sarah's at school, there's like somebody twitching next to her. And then obviously the grandmom that lives next door, all of that. You just felt it coming. And then we learned so much more about Sarah that it was almost, it hurt even more than I expected it to. I was like, oh, I know this is coming, so I'm prepared for it. And it was somehow harder and worse. And just, I wept and wept and wept.
I was honestly shocked that it opened on the scene in the 60s. That really kind of sets the stage for what this virus is, and honestly made it scarier.
Yeah. I wonder if there's more of a fear of just like the time we're living in, where we realize that, pandemics and things like this like get really scary. I will say the one thing, it's not a criticism, it's more just an observation, is the difference that I feel, and we haven't gotten too far into, the clickers and the bloaters and all the scary things that are out there, but I think because I'm not playing it, I'm less scared because I'm not afraid I'm going to die at any second, because I died maybe 89 times the first time I played The Last of Us. There's a scene where you got to go through like a what is it? It's like a subway system or something like that. I could not make it through. I was chucking my controller across the room. Just terrifying.
Yeah, the way that the game makes you so conscious of supplies and bullets and everything you need to survive, it really immerses you in it. And the show is very immersive, but when you're controlling the character and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of, band-aids or bullets or things to make a shiv so that I can finally kill a clicker without like it killing me as soon as I move too far. But at least you have Joel's superhuman hearing in the game, which I guess is not a part of the show. I don't know how you would explain that.
Probably not going to be a part of it.
I don't know how they would touch that. But yeah, Sarah's story was pretty spot on from the time Joel got home. All that stuff before Joel gets home from work and they're on the couch together was all new. Like the show just kind of starts at the game just kind of starts at the house. The show adds a lot to Sarah's story. And I'm so curious. And I'm really curious to see. I want to hear from people, on social media. I want you guys to send us your tweets and comments on this video where you're watching the show. People who haven't played the game, if you genuinely didn't know that Sarah was going to die, like how hard did that land? Because I knew that was coming. And actually it sounds like that hit you really, really hard.
It did.
I'm so curious if you genuinely had no idea that was coming. What was that like to experience it for the first time now? Because I wish I could feel that. I would love to feel. I don't want to rob myself of the experience playing the game, and it's my favorite game of all time. But I would love to know what it was like to experience it on the show without knowing.
God, ready to be hurt again.
Awful. We actually, we have a clip that I pulled out here that shows just how word for word some of the dialogue is between Joel and Sarah when she gives him the watch. Listen to this.
You still doing up? It's late.
Oh, crud, what time is it?
It's way past your bedtime.
But it's still today.
Honey, please not right now. I do not have the energy for this.
Here.
What's this?
Your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, You like it?
I think it's stuck. It's not...
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
I mean, some of that made it straight into the show. When they're driving, they drive past, I think in the show they call it Jimmy's farm.
Yeah.
In the game, it's like Lewis's house or something, but it's all the same. It looks the same. The cops driving by at the end of the street was, framed up the same way as it is from Sarah's perspective in the back of the car, looking through the windshield. That really, they really were like, we're doing this. And there's one thing I want to point out from early in the show. If you watch back, that watch, I think speaks a lot to Joel's character in kind of subtle ways, because in the first scene with them all in the kitchen, Pedro looks down at his wrist and then touches it and realizes the watch isn't there, and then looks at his old Nokia phone that we all used to play Snake on and gets the time and realizes that he has to go because he doesn't have the watch anymore. So he obviously is used to having that watch. He appreciates having that watch, but he doesn't do anything for himself. So Sarah has to take his own money to do something for him. And I think that's supposed to tell us, this is a guy who's so busy doing for others that he doesn't even take the time or the money that he does have to do something for himself because he wants his watch fixed, but Sarah has to go do it for him. So I thought that was just an interesting, subtle little point that I picked up on.
Yeah, I picked that up the second time I watched it. I was like, oh my gosh, and we'll get into it later, but the watch is significant. So
the watch does play a part going forward. Yeah, that's
the character.
That's true. The outbreak unfolding is pretty accurate to the game as well. That whole scene. There's some stuff that in the show there are some differences, but overall the vibe of it is very similar. The tone of the outbreak is very similar, but the old neighbors, I guess you just don't have a zombie show without a creepy old person crawling in a weird way.
Yep.
But it was a lot of that was very, very accurate. The dog barking and the dog being there. You don't actually see the dog in the game, I don't think, but you hear the dog barking. So yeah, I thought the outbreak stuff was really, really cool. Now, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. I said I wanted to hear what people think of it, if they experienced it for the first time, if they experienced it from the game. But we have to talk about how similarly the death scene with Sarah was to the game. I know. I'm
We
the
skip
bearer
this
of
part?
Got a
bad.
couple of civilians on the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay? Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir. Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need... Shit. Please don't. Oh, no. Sarah. Move your hands, baby. I know, baby, I know. God. Listen to me. I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby. I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby. I know.
So
What's the word when you love pain? You're like a
masochist.
yes. I feel like we are masochists because I have watched this scene so many times in the last week, just like preparing for everything, and I'm like, I'm not well. I need a therapist.
It's just for everybody who's listening in podcast form. You just listened, if you have not played the game, to Sarah's death from The Last of Us video game, and it is so similar to what happens in the show, and both really hurt. And we knew it was coming, and we watched it anyway.
I also like hats off to Nico Parker in the show for her performance of that scene. And then also we'll get into this with Gabriel, but just the delivery of Gabriel being like Joel and like knowing Sarah's fate and Joel not accepting it. And just like, it's just, I don't know, it hit me even harder in the show than I expected it to, because in the game, I think it's a little clearer that the military is going to shoot her. They're like, they've got a kid, like it's a kid, blah, blah, blah. And they don't say it in the show. So it's like, I think Joel is less aware that that's really what's about to happen. Like, he's just like, wait a minute. It's just, I don't know. I hate it. I love it.
They really convince you that that soldier's about to kill Joel, and then Tommy saves him.
Yeah.
Kills the soldier. And so I think that is Tommy's first apocalyptic kill, as far as we saw. And Joel's hands are still clean, which I'm going to get into later in this episode. I think
he didn't kill anyone. Tommy didn't kill anybody in the like first when they're picking up Sarah.
Well, nobody who's still alive. Like Joel killed the old lady who was infected.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But I think there's something I want to talk about later that we haven't really seen Joel get his hands dirty with like a living person yet. Because in the game he kills some people, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So at this point we're in the prologue of the game.
Yeah, literally,
like in the game, the credits are now rolling. It's like, oh my God.
Whew. Wow, yeah.
We're not even in the game yet, really. It's just like that whole part is like a tutorial.
Yeah, you're literally learning how to play the game at that point. And it's very much expanded on in the show. Did the credits roll after this in the show?
Yeah.
So the credits rolled like nearly 30 minutes in.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you played it back, I think it was about 15 minutes or so.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. That's madness. It's
quick. It just depends on how fast you're moving along with like checking things out and reading. Because when I play a game, I'm like, I have to read every single thing in case it comes up later, and it never does.
Mm-hmm. So then we jump 20 years ahead. We are now in Boston.
Yes.
One big difference that you'll see, the gamers will know if you don't know the game, this is one thing that's just not happening in the show. Spores. Whenever the characters go basically underground or to dark places where there's a bunch of infected, there are spores and they have to wear gas masks. And if you breathe in the spores, you will become an infected. And Craig Mazin, it's in an interview on comicbook.com. You can watch this clip. I'm going to paraphrase here. What's that?
I said shameless plug.
I just wanted to, make sure everybody knows that on comicbook.com we interviewed Craig Mazin. So if you watch the interview, though, he or read it, our gaming team does a great job covering this in editorial form. That he said that there's no spores because he was just like, there's just no way we could do that in the show and it not seem like everybody would just be infected. Like in reality, if there were spores floating around, it would be really, really difficult to ever walk around without a gas mask and feel like you're not going to get infected, not just be in dark, underground, closed-in spaces. So they removed the spores element from it. But as you'll see coming up, I'll tease this a little bit. there is another kind of thing that they added in place of spores, in a sense, in terms of how the infection spreads, and like that's all. I'll just leave it at that. But there is some really cool stuff coming up about that. But I don't really care that they remove spores. If I'm honest, it's not really a thing that I'm like, oh no, Pedro Pascal's not wearing another mask.
I was gonna say, I wonder if it was more like, oh, we can't like have another show where Pedro Pascal is playing a character that has to have this reluctant cargo that he needs to transport that he doesn't love, but then falls in love with, and then like, wear a mask.
Yeah, I could definitely be a factor. That could be a factor. Well, and interestingly, like in the game, that is a big part of how, not a big part, but it's a part of how Joel starts to trust Ellie. Because at the end of this episode, we learn that Ellie's immune to the virus because she's been bitten. And when he sees that she doesn't have to wear a mask near the spores, and he does, he asks her straight up, how are you not wearing a mask? And she's like, I'm not, like, it's real. This virus doesn't affect me. So it's part of what builds their trust. So they'll just obviously have to find some sort of replacement for that in the show.
Right.
What do we think of Tommy?
I loved him. I don't know. I mean, we spend more time with him in the show than we did in the game, at least initially. And I don't know. I love their relationship. Like, and they're so sweet. And I like seeing also, we see like, how Sarah and Tommy had more of a relationship so that when she is dying, it really affects him too. And I just loved him. I thought Gabriel Luna was amazing. And spoiler, we're talking to him in a few minutes.
Yeah. No, I think Gabriel's it's been fun to watch Gabriel's career take off. He was Ghost Rider, he was in Terminator, he's been in a bunch of things. And now when he got cast as Tommy, after Pedro got cast, I was like, oh, these two together are going to be great. This is going to be great. And I think they are. I think Gabriel has just kind of like a charisma on screen that is hard to miss. And I think he's making for a really good Tommy. I'm not gonna lie, when this show was first announced, I was thinking like Josh Holloway from Lost would have been a really good Tommy. But now, I mean, I'm in. I'm fully in on Gabriel. I think he's great.
Yeah. What did you think of Tess?
I think Tess is such a badass. And like Tess is a badass in the game, but she is cool. Like she is tough in this show. When her introduction came from an interrogation, which is another thing that's completely unique to the show, did not happen in the game. Mm-hmm. That was just to show how tough as nails this character is. And interestingly, her and Joel's relationship seemingly being a bit more romantic than it is implied to be in the game. And not that there's anything that really solidifies it, but when she gets in bed and puts her arm around him, it's just like, all right, I got my person here. And they're two people who they don't seem like people who are extroverts when it comes to emotions, because the world has probably stripped them of that. And they just kind of have each other, and they know that about each other. And I love Tess. Anna Torv plays Tess. And I think Tess is really cool. Tess is tough.
Can I say though, I think she's tougher in the game than she comes off in the show, because in the game, like, let's talk about that confrontation with Robert. Mm-hmm. She like bashes his head in with a lead pipe and then shoots him point blank in the game.
Yeah, so... we have that clip. We have that clip actually, and I want to roll that clip real quick.
I just need more time. Just, give me a week.
I might have done that if you hadn't tried to fucking kill me.
Come on, it won't.
Who has our guns?
I can't. Just give me a couple.
Who has our guns?
It's the Fireflies. I owe the Fireflies.
What?
They're basically all dead. We can just go in there, finish them off. We get the guns. What do you say? Come on. Yeah, fuck those Fireflies. Let's go get them.
That is a stupid idea.
Boom, she pops him twice right there.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, I think, she's still tough as nails on the show, but I think in the show, Robert's like, it's more implied that Robert is scared of Joel versus Tess, where in the game, it's like he is terrified of Tess. She is the leader. She's running the show.
Yeah, Joel breaks his arm. She shoots him in the face twice, and the game removes that. Or the show removes that, rather. I'm trying to figure out what the creative choice, like what the decision to change that scene was, because somebody else killed Robert. And I personally, the only thing I can land on is that they're trying to save Joel being involved in killing humans for a more emotional point. Like they really like they're to this point. The only person who's killed any living person is Tommy killing a soldier to save Joel's life. So on screen, like, yes, Robert was killed, but we don't see it happen. So I feel like the reason they may have done that was so that the first time you see a human get killed in this 20-year time jump point on screen is the point that emphasizes like Joel, how far he's come when he kills the soldier who's ready to kill Ellie and Tess and protect them the way he couldn't protect Sarah. And it just shows that this man will do whatever it takes to protect people, and a human being killed before that. That's kind of my thought on it. They may have done that intentionally. I don't know. If we talk to Craig Mazin, which hopefully we do on The Last of Pods, we'll ask something like that. But that's kind of my theory.
Also, another difference, I don't know, major or not, but it's a different year.
Yeah. In the game, it's 2013, right?
Yes.
Or is it 2033?
No, it's 2033. The outbreak's 2013, and then it goes to 2033, and now it was 2003 to 2023, I think.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, like, was that just to show we were less prepared in 2003? Or, I don't know.
I wonder why. Maybe it was just like, let's parallel it with the universe a little bit.
Because we weren't really much more prepared in 2020. So I don't really know.
Clearly not.
Yeah, but maybe they did just want it to be set kind of, if this started 20 years ago. And also, I think Sarah, she asks, like, what's going on with this? Is it terrorists or something? In 2003, when I was a kid in New Jersey, like, that would have been my first question as a kid. I'd have been terrified. And I probably would have been like, is this like a terrorist thing? Because that's so quickly after September 11th. That would be, for a lot of people, probably one of the first things they think of back in 2003.
Yeah, it is wild because it's like you also watch it unfold in this where no one, I mean, if this, let's say this really happened, like nobody's mind is going to zombies, I don't think. Like, so it's just like they have no freaking clue what's going on, which is why I'm sure the military is like, well, we don't know what this is. So
if it happened today, the first thing we do is live tweet it.
Oh my God, I'd be cracking up at the memes. I would. I don't have any emotions anymore.
Literally. All right. Some things I want to point out that I noted. I wrote down so many little details about the show, like just things I wanted to point out that I thought were interesting that were either straight out of the game or completely different. They mentioned the Atlanta quarantine zone. They give a little bit more detail to it in the game, that soldier that Joel ends up killing at the end. He says that they make bullets and pills in Atlanta. I don't know if that's going to become a factor. The Atlanta quarantine zone never becomes a factor in the games. It's just referenced and it's there, but maybe they're going to expand past that. When Joel looks at the map, he looks at places like, I think he starts in Boston, he goes to Albany, he goes to Kalamazoo, he goes to Chicago, to Casper, to Buffalo, Wyoming, and ultimately Tommy is in Wyoming. So he's making that journey on the map. So that tells you really where we're going and some of the places we might see coming up. Tess and Joel definitely have a thing, and that's a little bit stronger than it is in the game. In the game, they're looking for guns from Robert. In the show, they're looking for a battery for that truck to take that map route we just talked about. There is a mention of Riley, right? And Riley is, Marlene mentions Riley.
Mentions Riley, and then also we have that whole sequence of like Ellie being chained up and all that. That's obviously not in the game, but I think that is that in the comic situation?
There's the DLC and then there's the comic that both fill out the Riley story, and Riley's like one of Ellie's old friends is what we'll say for now. I do believe we're going to get that story on the show, so I don't want to spoil anything, but there's the Last of Us American Dreams comic, which was a 4-issue comic published by Dark Horse back when The Last of Us 1 came out, and that and the DLC that followed the game both explore Ellie's time not with Joel.
So I feel like they're just like alluding to a little more of the expanded lore when she's kind of like, oh, what would Riley think or whatever. And we'll get into that later, but it's just, I think when we meet her, it's really, cause she's obviously so pissed off and, hates everybody and is just cursing up like Sailor. And that's when you're kind of like, that's my Ellie.
Yeah, exactly. I want to compliment Joel for being so fast. When Ellie came barreling out of the door, he just threw her into the wall. And I was like, bro, this man is quick. This man has survival skills. But also, Ellie would have stabbed him in the leg like she stabbed the soldier, which is my segue into the last clip of today's show, which is the sequence where we just talked about with the soldiers when they exit the quarantine zone. So let's get this.
Don't do anything stupid.
Move.
Turn around, on your knees. You scan him, I'll call it in.
Okay. Put your hands on your head.
This is Ramirez at Sector 12, requesting pickup for 3 stragglers. Understood.
Look the other way. I can make this worth your while.
Shut up. Tired of shit. What's the ETA?
Couple minutes.
I thought we were just gonna hold him up or something.
Oh, shit. Look.
Jesus Christ. Marlene set us up? Why the hell are we smuggling an infected girl?
I'm not infected.
No? Just lying?
I can explain.
You better explain fast.
Look at this.
I don't care how you got infected.
It's 3 weeks old.
No, everyone turns within 2 days, so you stop bullshitting.
It's 3 weeks. I swear.
Another cool thing, I forgot to mention it, is they have that poster that has like how people get infected or like the timeline. And it's the closer you are to the brain, the faster you get infected. So if you're like bitten in the leg, it'll take you, I forget what it was, but like 45 minutes versus 5 minutes or something like that.
Right. And I appreciate that because like on The Walking Dead, it was started to be like if you got bit by a zombie, it didn't matter where you got bit or how much you got bit or whatever. It was just kind of for the sake of the story, how quickly you will turn. Yeah. Like if you need somebody to turn in 5 minutes, they will. If you need somebody to turn in 5 hours, they will. And it's just kind of an undefined thing where The Last of Us pays so much attention to detail. Tommy and Joel beefing over fireflies in the show, it seems. Yeah,
different. Because in the game, at least up until this point, we don't hear about Tommy.
No, not really. No.
So he's not, and in the lore, and this is not a spoiler for the show, but in the game, it's like Tommy actively leaves Joel at some point and is like, I never want to see your face again. So they don't have. It's a different thing in this one where he's like, Tommy's hasn't responded. He's missing. He would never do this. I have to go find my brother.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. And Ellie asks the question, who's Bill and Frank? You'll find out. You want to talk more about Bill and Frank? We'll talk about them at the end of the show. Those are characters from the games. But that is a question for our spoiler chat. And the song at the end of the episode, Never Let Me Down Again by Depeche Mode. I should like somebody.
Depeche Mode. Who are you?
Listen, I don't know. I knew somebody was going to call me out. I thought I didn't know it was going to be you, Ash. All right, fine. Depeche Mode. That song is from 1987, which means trouble.
Trouble, yes. And I'm glad you looked that up because I was like, wait, what? I need to know exactly what year the song is from.
It means trouble. It means trouble. So listen, I don't know how to read things, but I do know what year songs came out. And it was not, so that means trouble, which means trouble's about to come. And if you look at the lyrics of that song, it definitely is about this little road trip they're about to go on.
Should we segue to something really exciting?
I definitely think we should.
You think we should? Do you want to do the honors? I opened the show, so I feel like you should do the honors.
All right, everybody. We're going to take a quick 1 minute break, and when we come back to The Last of Pods, we're going to be talking spoilers for episode 1 of The Last of Us with none other than Tommy himself, Gabriel Luna. Stay tuned. See you there. Welcome back to The Last of Pods. As promised, we are getting to our very special guest interview that we are very, very excited to launch our first episode with. We are celebrating the premiere of The Last of Us. You may know this man as Ghost Rider in the Marvel Universe. You may know him as a Rev 9 Terminator. But now, if you're here, it means you know him as Tommy Miller from The Last of Us. Welcome to The Last of Pods, Gabriel Luna.
Hey, what's up, Brandon?
What's up,
how are you guys doing?
So good. Thank you so much for being here with us on our very first episode. This is so freaking exciting.
Oh, thank you for having me. Very excited.
So I just let's start with backing it all the way up before you were even filming. How much did you know about Tommy Miller and when were you cast in this role?
Well, I knew what I knew of Tommy at the onset was about 30 minutes of gameplay that I had back in 2013 when I was visiting Austin for Christmas. And I was having a jam session with a bunch of my buddies, and we were in between, playing guitar, set it down, go sit on the couch and I rifled through all of his games, and he had The Last of Us. So I threw that in. And it was surprising to me that the whole first 30 minutes of the game take place in Austin. And I thought that was really, really cool. I mean, it wasn't as prominent then as it is now, that being Austin being represented in the media. And so I played it, then never didn't play it again until 10 years later when I was, I guess, back in 21 when we were gearing up to do the show. I was told that Mason and Neil thought of me for the role and thought it might be good, might fit as Pedro's brother, and that there was some interest there. So I bought the game and started playing it immediately because I didn't take a meeting with Mason and not know what they were talking about. But it was helpful in that I was preparing for the job before I had it, and once I got there and talked to Neil, talked to Craig, and of course I didn't want to take a meeting with Neil and just not really know anything about it, which apparently wasn't cause for concern or a reason to worry, because they were telling everyone else not to play. I was happy to be on my own little Last of Us boat for 2.5 months and discovering the characters, discovering who Tommy was, realizing how many similarities there were, and how all it did was build my anticipation for day one, just to finally get the chance to step into those boots.
Well, that actually that leads perfectly into my next question, because one of the things, I mean, you read the reviews, you watch the episode now. One of the things that people keep talking about and realizing is how faithful this is to the games. This is incredible. Like, the adaptation is really honoring the source material. And there's also a few small differences along the way as well. Like your character, Tommy, in this, to start this episode, he's getting picked up from jail. Sounds like it's not his first time in jail. And it sounds like he might be there because he was fighting somebody who sounded like they might have been an infected, trying to help somebody else. I would hear, from in your perspective, who is your version of Tommy like that we meet in this episode to start the journey? Who is he right now? Because I don't think he's going to be the same guy forever when you get 20 years into the apocalypse.
Right. No, that's funny you mentioned that call. That was we did that on the sound stage, just in the corner of one of the sound stages, when we were doing additional photography for the show. That was a late addition by Craig, and it was great, and it brought back a few memories. Yeah, it was funny. We were at the premiere the other night, and I had my whole crew from Austin. We're here. A lot of my friends, like a lot of my day ones, moved to LA a few years ago. So I have a lot of close friends that I call family, and they were all there. They were all there to support me. I hear that scene comes on, the call from jail, letting Joel know that I got into a bit of an altercation at the bar, and some guy started swinging at a waitress, and I had to handle business. But I turn over my buddy Nick and my buddy Valen, who are both seated just across the aisle, same row across the aisle. And they were looking right at me, because unfortunately we all know we're all very familiar with Travis County Jail on 10th. We were all 18 years old, and our buddy Kyle's dad was a real estate guy. And he's like, "Oh, my dad bought me this house. We should all go, and there's a volleyball court in the back. Take some girls and go drink some beers there." So we did. We got some beers, got a little weed, took some girls, and we were all sitting in the back playing volleyball. And I guess some nosy Nelly from down the road saw a bunch of cars in that driveway that she hadn't seen prior, and decided that she was going to call the police. So the police come. They hemmed us all up for trespassing. We all went in. They took us to the drunk tank, and we were there for about 6 hours. So I'm very familiar with Travis County Jail on 10.
Wow. In 2023, that's what we call a Karen right there. That's
oh, right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Cops on us. But yeah, so Tommy is who he is in that moment is nothing special, man. He's just a good old boy from Austin. Him and his brother work hard. They're working construction, and they're content to go do their 12-hour days, come home, crack a beer, watch a little TV till they fall asleep, and do it all over again. And I think Tommy has a lot more fun with it. I think he enjoys being Sarah's fun uncle, and he's got a very playful and humorous spirit. but he's also a very capable man. And when push comes to shove and it's time to defend the family, he has that skill set being a former Army sniper. So I think that what you see is a guy that two very normal guys who when the time calls for it are able to rise to the moment.
Did you have a chance at all to talk with Jeffrey Pierce, who played Tommy in the game, to see his perspective on how it should be played or anything, or did you make it completely your own, or how'd that go?
Well, in terms of speaking with Jeffrey Pierce, it was during production that I started to have some correspondence with him on Twitter. And that was the extent of our meeting until 2 nights ago at the premiere, which was the first time that he and I have ever met in person. And his performance, the PCAP and the voice acting that he did for Tommy were so rich that there was so much to draw on already. There was a lot of, but really there was a feeling of us having this shared spirit. You know, I told him the other night, like you, me, Tommy, you know, we feel very similar. It's eerie in how so much of our mannerisms and our voice and how much of it lines up. But what I had to tell him was thank you for his support and his defense of me in the role. There's been, as there always is when I play a character, when I play the Ghost Rider, when I play the Terminator, there always seems to be a contingent of the audience that finds it hard to see someone like me in the role. It's interesting that they're able to believe robots, killer robots, and men whose head ignite into flames, but it's very difficult for them to believe someone who looks like me and is of my ethnicity is capable of playing these roles. But Jeffrey Pierce just steadfastly has always been at my side throughout production in defense of my portrayal of Tommy. And it was nice, man. It was nice to finally to get, because I know when people see it, they see the show, it's gonna take like 2 seconds before you're no longer seeing a person or the actor. You're just seeing the character that you've always loved, because I drew on what Jeffrey did. I drew on my own experience being a guy from Austin who shares a lot of the same characteristics as Tommy to create something that I feel is very authentic, and that it won't take them long to just to forget the guy playing him and just see Tommy on the screen.
Yeah, I talked to Jeffrey at the premiere too, and I was like, "Oh, did you have this moment with Gabriel where you were like, that's my Tommy?" And he was like, "Oh, yes, absolutely," like right off the bat. And I feel like we experienced that in the show too, because these are characters that we've known since 2013, and you kind of have this idea of what they look like, sound like, whatever. But it melts away so quickly in the first episode. So I just want to ask you, Gabriel, like, did you have like apprehensions of stepping into this role because of that, or the fact that you've dealt with it before with like Ghost Rider and Terminator, you were like, I got this?
Right. No, I think it's the latter, Ash. I think it was a feeling of here we go again. Let's do it again. Take a character that people have known their entire lives, and in some instances with the Ghost Rider and of course with the Terminator. And then in this case, a lot of young people play The Last of Us and love it. 2013 was 10 years ago. So majority of their lives, they've loved this guy, Tommy. So there were no apprehensions in that. I was so excited to work with Craig and Neil and to tell this story that, I don't think twice about those things until later when you start to, it's only then that you realize that there is a little bit of the murmurs of uncertainty. But for me, it's just another exciting challenge to undergo. And so I just felt that if I do my job and do it the way I always do with nothing but love and passion and dedication, discipline, respect, that the things always come out, And,
yeah.
And so I wasn't nervous in that way, and then even less so once I got to work and I saw what we were doing, and I saw John Piano's production design, and I saw how much Craig loved it, and he's a great director. Craig is. This is his first time directing, and he's got a way with the words. Of course, I mean, being as prolific as he is, but he also has a way with he has an energy about him, a playful energy that a lot of actors carry. And as a director, he brings that bridge to every encounter with each of his actors. So once I saw who I was dealing with, that it was nothing but fans involved in this, and that we were all making it for the fans, all of it melted away.
One of my favorite things in like any apocalypse story, whether it's Walking Dead or World War Z or The Last of Us, is kind of the scene where you see the world fall apart. And The Last of Us has one of those that's like the best ever, especially the game. And you guys had the task of bringing that to life. And you found a way to make it even better, in my opinion. So I want to know, when you step on the set of those days, when it's like the world falling apart, there's literally planes falling out of the sky, there's zombies or infected everywhere. How immersive is that? Like, how much of that is legit happening, and how does it compare to what you expected a zombie outbreak scene to be like before you got there?
Yes, the world descending into chaos is always a very exciting moment. These types of stories. What's cool about the beginning of the show, which in the script it was almost, I think it was like it was documentary footage of the zombie ants. I don't know if you've ever seen that, National Geographic, but it's an existing special about this cordyceps fungus. But they switched it. They did some reshoots where we have the scene in the 60s where John Hannah, who I got to work with on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., really great actor. I didn't know John was in it. I was so excited to see him, and also to see Big Head from Silicon Valley. Great actor. Forgive me if his name is slipping my mind now. But the scene where John gets to prognosticate what the end of the world might look like, and then for us to go right to Austin, Texas, and see it happen. That whole scene is all of it. Mostly all of it is in camera. I mean, all of the monsters are there. We completely reconstructed the facades of a whole street in Fort Macleod, Alberta, which is about an hour and a half south of Calgary. I remember going and looking and seeing the set and just being like, this looks like Buda, Texas. I mean, I have been on some big productions, but this one was I found myself in full 360 sets that I can see, touch, hear, everything. All senses were ignited, and everything was there for you to experience.
That's unreal. And then they dropped a plane out of the sky. No big deal.
And the plane was actually just a massive light wall.
Wow.
That blasted. I mean, we were all instructed to avert our gaze, because that thing was just, I mean, it was the most intense light emitting device that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it's just this massive wall of light. Could easily damage your retina or cornea, we were told, so we had to look away. But yeah, that's the only thing that we had to probably fake was a 747 Boeing 747 falling out of the sky. But
wow.
But yeah, everything else was pretty much there, man.
It's wild too, even watching it. And then, we went back and played the game, and it's like, that's just the prologue. That's like 15 minutes flat of the game. But we get to learn so much more about Tommy, about Sarah, to the point where that scene where Sarah dies is it's the first major gut punch of the game. But also I think it was even harder to get through in the show because we know even more about them. And I think one of the hardest parts for me was Tommy's reaction, because he knew that Sarah was dead before I think Joel was like accepting it at all. And he was just like, I mean, what was it like filming that? Because that broke me. I wept through that.
Yeah, that scene is one that I keep saying was circled on my one-liner and my schedule right from the start. I I know what that means. That sets that puts everybody in their place for the beginning of the story. And it was critically important that we got it right. And we did it on a night that was pretty cold night. Another short but very trying type of night. The importance to me was I'm not cold to it. I'm feeling all those emotions. I'm not cold to the fact that my niece is standing there bleeding out. I simply know. I simply know better based on my experience. And when there's danger around every corner, and there's no guarantee that we ourselves are going to get out as individuals, it's a horrible moment to have to endure, I would imagine, or I was trying to put myself in that place. It would to say in one word, Joel, she's gone and we have to go. It was because really that was really my only line in that scene. The rest is just being there for him, just being there and standing in that place for him. I'm very happy with the way it came out. I remember on the night all of us just being, super, our nerves frayed because this was so important, and we all knew how important it was. And Pedro was just giving his whole heart and pouring his soul out in that scene, and all you can do is just be there as his brother and love him in the moment, but also tell him the truth. And that's what you do with people that you love. You tell them the truth, and however hard the truth may be.
How many times did you guys have to take that one?
Oh man, we went a few times. We went a few times that night, because there's a lot going on. There's blood bags, blood being fed through a tube. There was for Nico and Pedro to deliver those moments the way that they did, considering what is just outside of the frame, is already a testament to their great skill. Because it's you got our special effects are just standing like 5 feet away, pumping the blood through the tube so that the blood kind of bubbles up from her wound, and Pedro's dealing with all that, and we went through a few. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 takes, maybe. Which is a lot. We just wanted to get all the coverage and wanted to feel like we were there in that place, and then wanted to give Pedro what he needed, so to know that he feels good and with where we left it, because you don't want to walk away from a scene like that and feel like we didn't get it, So that whole night was pretty much devoted to that whole second half of that night. So once again, very short nights. So if you can imagine trying to do that scene, such a critically important scene, but also doing it under the gun of sun's coming up at 4:30 a.m. It just went down at 11, and now it's coming up at 4:30, and we have to get one of the most important scenes in the entirety of the story. So yeah, a lot of pressure, but very proud because I believe we accomplished it. We accomplished what we set out to do.
I mean, it is the powerful moment in this first episode. And when I played the game, I played through it like 3 times just because it hit me so hard, and you guys delivered it so impressively. And okay, so now we're gonna get a little bit lighter here. That was a heavy thing to talk about. Listen, I want to celebrate you a bit, man. When we introduced you, we talked about how you've been part of the Marvel world. We talked about Terminator. You were if people with taste might recognize you from Prison Break back in the day. And now The Last of Us, dude. You've been
if they blink, they would have missed me in that one.
Hey, listen, I saw it. I was going through the IMDb profiles, like which ones do I want to mention on the show today, and I was like, I got to shout out Prison Break because I used to sit there and watch Prison Break with my mom every week. We were deep in that show, but what's left? What is there anything left on the bucket list? Because I feel like you're living the geek dream here.
Yeah, no, Prison Break, great show, man. Great show. It gave a lot of Austin actors a lot of work back in the day. There was only so many shows shooting in Texas, and Prison Break was shooting up in Dallas. Some fond memories of that. Ghost Rider was a dream come true. The Terminator was a dream come true. Becoming friends with Arnold and all that I've experienced since that movie, and this is an absolute dream. I mean, it's right up there. I mean, it will be up there. We're right in the middle of it. This is the game being the first act of this, this franchise's legacy, and so I've been really, really fortunate. I remember my publicist telling me before we went to Comic-Con for Terminator, we were going to be there in Hall H and 6,000 people and everyone going nuts. And I remember at the time the Ghost Rider show had been greenlit, was going to come out. So she was like, "Man, you Terminator, Ghost Rider, you're going to be the king of the nerds." And I was like, man, if they would have a king, he or she should come from among them. So, because I am absolutely a big nerd myself. So it bleeds together, man. Dreams and reality. Sometimes it does. And the last few years of my life have been a bit of that, being able to, I tell Arnold when we were
hold on, let's just take a second. I tell Arnold, I text the Terminator.
I tell him. Well, he doesn't text. He likes to FaceTime. That's what he likes.
Okay.
But I tell him all the time, because I remember when we were doing the Terminator, and then we just wrapped up a show called Fubar for Netflix, and I feel like the kid in The Last Action Hero, and I tell him that all the time. It's just I get to step into the screen and spend time with my hero and be with these live the life of these characters that we've known of and have loved for a very long time. And so it's just another experience, just been another one of those. The Last of Us, get to step in and be Tommy, feel the love from the people who cherish this game, and then I always feel my duty to let them know that we are the same. I mean, we're absolutely in the same boat together in our mutual love. And that I said it during Ghost Rider, I said it through Terminator when I addressed all the fans. I was like, I have your interests at the front of my mind and in my heart. That's I think that's a good place to work from. I mean, if you can keep that sense of the sense of wonder and fun and play that you have when you experience these stories, and if you're able to bring that to your work every day, the hope is that it translates, and there's no quantifiable way of knowing if it does, but I feel that is always a good start to approach from that place. And I think that on Sunday that they're going to see that it worked and that it's right.
Hell yeah, man, dude. We got a lot of love for you. I think the first time we did an interview was at New York Comic-Con. I think it was for Terminator. I'm not sure, but you were like driving the Ghost Rider car around on a remote control, and I was like, man, you're just having a good time, man. Like, it's Comic-Con, we're there to have a good time, and the way we geeked out about it, I was like, dude, this guy's real. This guy's one of us, because I've been to Comic-Con 8 years in a row now, which is like my favorite thing in the world, my favorite part of working at comicbook.com. And then you Ghost Rider, Terminator. I'm happy for you, dude. And we have another podcast called Phase Zero. You ever want to go down memory lane in the Marvel universe, you're welcome to come talk MCU with us anytime you want. Of course, dude. And Ash, I think we have one last question for Gabriel before we got to let him go, because I could talk all day about The Last of Us, but I know we got to let this man get back to his life.
I was going to say, we have a friend of the pod, David Stops-Malchin, who calls it Nerdvana. So I feel like you're in Nerdvana. And I think the next thing is we need to see you join Pedro in the Star Wars universe, because that's my wish.
I think so. Oh yeah, that was the second part to your question. Yeah, man, Star Wars. I wrote a letter to Dave and a while back, and it's a dream of mine. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities there. I was just talking to Neil at the party, and I was like, man, Neil, until we do that, until that time comes when it's time for Star Wars, and that's just wishful thinking and hoping, and but once again, I will always prepare as if I have the job. So if that day should ever come, I'll be ready. But I was telling Neil, you know what? We're in the middle of this Last of Us. Once again, it's only the first act of the legacy that's played out right now. And if Neil could be our Filoni and be the steward of this story, there's a lot of story to tell in the Last of Us world. And so I'm ready to ride with this one for as long as it takes to tell the story in a very complete way. And but then beyond that, galaxies far, far away, maybe.
Who's to say Din Djarin doesn't have a brother in a galaxy far, far away who needs bailing out of jail?
What did your letter to Dave say?
Oh, it was just about my love of all things Star Wars and particularly Rebels. Rebels was this was me throwing my hat in for a certain Ezra Bridger not ever knowing if this was years ago, not ever knowing if they would ever do anything with Ezra. But it was just that's one. He's probably besides Luke, is my favorite character. Or actually, I'm sorry, R2, Luke, Ezra Bridger. And so there's all the similarities between Ezra and I, and the fact that he lives on a planet with 2 moons, and that my last name is Luna, and I love animals, and all of this thing. So it was really just a love letter of appreciation to Star Wars, and then of course I'm a big fan of the New High Republic stuff. So it's and there's another great character in that. I don't know if anybody's ever. I don't want to mention it now here, but there's another great character there that I think I might be angling towards.
Who? No, say it. Manifest it.
Elzar Mand.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
if we had to put me and Brandon in factions, he's the Marvel daddy and I'm the Star Wars mommy. And so this is just delightful. I love it. I love that for you.
There we go. So there we go. Put it on the universe, put it on the galaxy. But love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. The Last of Us, January 15th, just a few days away. And they're in store for something pretty. I mean, that first episode is truly spectacular. I was so pleased and thankful for the experience and for everyone whose talents are up there on the screen. So I look forward to everyone seeing that.
Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us on Last of Pods. Everybody who's listening, we're about to go into spoilers for what's coming based on the games. So if you don't want to know, now's your chance to exit, just like Gabriel's about to. We saved those for the end. But Gabriel, we cannot thank you enough for joining us on Last of Pods, and we're so happy for you. And I can't wait to keep following you, dude. Congratulations on everything so far. I still feel like you're just getting started somehow.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Ash.
Thank you. Yes, come back.
Dude, Gabriel was so cool. That was awesome. All right, everybody. So now we are going to do a few minutes of talking about spoilers for what will be coming to The Last of Us if it follows the game. We're not going to talk anything about what we've seen from future episodes, only what happens in the games beyond this equivalent point in the story. So if you don't want to know any spoilers, you want to remain immune to these spoilers, this is the point where you got to pause the pod, come back next week, or just listen to this later, because you cannot unhear this stuff. I'm talking like deaths. Everything goes from the game right now. So spoilers are coming. I feel like that's been an ample warning. Ash, have I vamped the warning enough?
I think yes. I think you have been warned. If you're still here, I feel like it's not on us at this point.
Yeah, you're still here.
But if you're still here and you've played and you want to talk about spoilers, then let's do it.
This is like Last of Pods After Dark.
After Dark. I think the biggest thing that is happening that, we know what happens to Tess. And it's in the timeline of the game, it's quite soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I am dreading it.
That is the big next tough moment, I think, is losing Tess. Tess goes out a hero in the game, but goes out nonetheless. So,
can I say something controversial about the game? May I?
We love
In
a
the
hot take.
game, when Tess dies, she's like, okay, I'm going to hold the door, like, get out of here. And I think she gets them maybe 20 seconds. Like, it's very quick. And I'm to the point where I'm like, I don't know.
She could have just ran with them.
I mean, she couldn't because obviously she's, infected, but I don't know. I think she could have had a bigger exit. I don't know.
Yeah, a grander. They could have made it a bit more, a bit bigger of an impact, but they didn't, and they ended up fighting.
Come at me. I'm sorry.
Listen, no, but they end up. I mean, yeah, Joel ends up fighting off all the same people anyway in the game.
You want to know something interesting about Tess? In the initial stages of The Last of Us, she was going to be the antagonist of the game. So she was going to be the bad guy. This. Yes, she was going to be like the main antagonist, and they ended up scrapping that and then took some of those story points and gave them to Abby from The Last of Us 2.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
I don't think they got very far into that, but I think there is like a concept art of it somewhere out there.
I mean, that's like, I wonder how deeply developed that was with her as a villain, because I feel like, we always read these interviews where these writers are like, yeah, at one point I considered doing this or that. Lost was going to kill Jack in the first episode, and then he ended up becoming the main character. But, it's always interesting to hear like, oh, what? The whole world would be a different place if that was true. Right. I mean, our lives would be so different if Tess was the villain of The Last of Us. That's interesting. I didn't know that. And the other big thing that is coming, Ellie mentioned Bill and Frank. Bill is a major character for a while, for a little stint in The Last of Us. He's a guy who rigs a whole bunch of explosives and is very equipped, and he's like a doomsday prepper in the game.
Him and Ellie have incredible banter.
Yeah, but we don't.
Love Island anyway.
We don't meet Bill in the game. We never meet Bill.
No, Frank. We never meet Frank.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we don't meet Frank in the game. We meet Bill.
We meet his dangling legs. Sorry, that was like not a nice way to say that. But we do. We see like his body.
Yeah, tough scene at the explosively guarded house of Bill in the game. But yeah, so that's who Ellie's asking about. Those are the characters in the game, and they're not too far off either. And the other thing we're going to see is clickers. Like you all, obviously, everybody knows about clickers. We haven't seen a clicker yet in the first episode. And there's I remember the first time battling clickers, like in that Revolutionary War Museum. I don't know what that was actually in the Last of Us game. But there's been kind of images of that, what seems like that equivalent scene.
Yeah, it's in the trailer, yeah, for sure. Yeah. When he's like hushing and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Using his superior Joel Miller superpower hearing to identify exactly where things are. I really want that. I want to see them do that. I want to see a screen turn black and white, and we just see the glowing clicker through the wall.
Other side. Yeah, I mean, I want to see him. I want to see planks. How many times he moves the dumpster? I want to see giraffes. I want to see him crafting a shiv. Like, I want all of that.
Yeah.
This is like so subtle, but I loved at the end of the episode they show those two buildings that are kind of collapsed on each other, and that is the exact from the game.
But there's a ton more to come in The Last of Us. This is just the first episode. This is the first episode of The Last of Pods. We can't wait to be doing this with you all every Sunday night. Thank you so much for joining us in The Last of Pods. Big shout out to Gabriel Luna for giving us so much time and being such a cool guest with so much awesome insights and just perspective to share about his career. We have an epic roster of guests already in the works. We have some really cool people coming on The Last of Pods. Nobody we can share just yet, but we have some really cool stuff coming, so we hope you will be taking this ride with us. Every time Ash texts me about it, I just kind of lose my mind. And I'm like, hold on, wait a second. They're coming to the show.
Guess who we got?
Woo! Like Christmas morning. Every time my phone lights up. But please subscribe to The Last of Pods on every major podcast platform. Leave us a 5-star review. Share us with your friends. Full episodes are available on video on the comicbook.com, YouTube, and Twitch channels. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon Davis BD.
And you can find me at Ash Crossan on Twitter. That's where I post most of my stuff. And then also Entertainment Tonight, etonline.com, if you want to see other interviews like, Star Wars, Marvel. And also, Brandon and I have all of our The Last of Us interviews outside of this that are all over the place. So check those out. And follow our Twitter. Twitter.
That's right. At The Last of Pods. And also, I'm pretty sure if you follow Ash Crossan on Instagram, you will see Nick Cage singing to her. So
this is true.
that's another good reason right there. And that's our show, everybody. That's The Last of Pods. Welcome to The Last of Us era. The Last of Pods era has begun, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.